My friend was spending the night at my house while our parents stayed the night at a resort about an hour away. I say technically because she fell asleep around 11 p.m. I was 15 at the time, she was 14. I was still up watching low-budget sci-fi movies on TV and eating cold pizza as it neared 1 a.m. Like, I started getting a really weird feeling when I couldn't put my finger on it. I just felt so uncomfortable. I ignored it for a while until it got unbearable, and I realized that it felt like someone was watching me. My dad had been fixing some windows around the house during the day and had removed a bunch of the blinds, making for an unobstructed view into the house. But we lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood at the time, so no one thought anything of it. I got up to walk around trying to take my mind off what I was feeling. But as I neared the window on the other side of the living room, where I'd been sitting all night and my friend was still sleeping, I saw something weird on the glass. A foggy spot, maybe 6 inches in diameter, and it was getting bigger, then shrinking, then growing again every second. At the time, I was so wired with paranoia that I couldn't figure out what it was. I put my face just an inch from the window, studying it, and called out for my friend. I told her to hit the switch for the security lights. The foggy spot was breath, and I was staring into a man's face just on the other side of the glass. Why, I say, only centimeters away from it. My friend ran into the kitchen screaming while I stumbled backward in shock. I scrambled for my phone and called my parents and grabbed the knife still on the coffee table from dinner and held it up in a shaking hand. He pressed his palm against the window, still staring at me, and then disappeared into the dark. My neighbors, shotguns in hand, showed up in less than 2 minutes. My parents had called them and stayed with us until our parents arrived. No one found anything of the man except for footprints in the garden bed. Some years ago, I believe I was 9 years old. We lived in a small house we were renting. We had been there for a long time and had become rather lazy, storing everything in the second bedroom where me and my sister shared a bunk bed. She got top because she was taller and would hit her head while getting up, if on the bottom. So, I'm lying in my bed, wide awake, staring at the bottom of the top bunk blankly. At the moment, there is literally nothing in my mind. I'm just a pair of eyes staring out into space. I continue to stare blankly until about 1 a.m. My sister is snoring. I didn't know she snored. Coming from the window, strategically placed right next to my head, I hear a loud guttural growl. It doesn't sound in any way natural to this earth. You have to understand, I've never heard anything aside from crickets and cars come from that window. I slowly turn my head and I start to see some sort of red light coming from the window. I'm thinking, maybe if I stay quiet, whatever it is will go away. Then my door slowly proceeds to creak open. I slowly look towards the door and watch in absolute and complete horror as the door creaks back closed, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I pull my pocket knife from where it's lodged in the wood of the closest bedpost to my head. I continue to watch near the door when I feel something bump against my leg, which is under my covers in the bed. I'm now so terrified tears are streaming down my face, which is already moist from sweat. I feel my leg and nothing is there. I realized I didn't hear my sister snoring anymore. I think to myself, oh my God, she's dead. And then something bumped my other leg. Now I can't breathe, as I feel the area around that leg and feel nothing. The door creaks back open and I fly out of my bed in nothing but my undies hitting my head on the way. I trip over a toy and slam into the door as it closes. I hit the floor and saw a figure looking down at me. It was dark. I couldn't tell who or what it was until I hear my sister laugh and say, "What are you doing, silly?" I point at the window, then at my leg, and make a sound as I point at the door that I had just hit headfirst, as I begin to really start crying. Here's what had happened. The red light and growl both came from a new air conditioning unit our neighbor had installed, and it distracted me enough to not see or hear my sister get out of bed and go to the bathroom when she quietly opened the door, thinking I was asleep. One of our 6-week-old kittens got into the room and somehow got onto my bed and under my blanket, where it proceeded to bump against both my legs. My sister finished in the bathroom and came back. She quietly opened the door and closed it just in time without seeing me for me to crash into the door. I'll never forget how afraid I was, but every time I look back on it, I laugh. I was either in 7th or 8th grade at the time when one evening I got creeped out. No, it was beyond creepy. I was scared. And that scared me more. Country or mountain kids learn to cope with all sorts of problems that city kids wouldn't know how to deal with. But when it comes to weird human behavior, we are often at a loss. My parents loved to play cards. They were part of a circle of friends that met at different houses, had potluck dinner, and played cards for the rest of the evening. I usually went with them, but that evening I was getting over some kind of flu bug. I was camped out on the living room couch reading a book. I had asked Mama to close the curtains that faced me because the sun was in my eyes. I was still weak and getting up was an effort. Mama did close the curtain for me, which was a big help later on. It was still daylight when my parents left. The late afternoon sun was pouring in the back windows. My cat Whiskers was draped over the back of a chair, dozing in a warm sunspot. My old dog Julie was in a similar sunspot on the living room rug. I was reading my book, and all was right with the world, peaceful and quiet. I must have dozed off. I woke up, startled to hear my cat hissing and my dog growling. I never heard her growl like that before, that low rumble that still continues with the intake of breath. Julie had moved over to stand stiffly next to me, facing the front door. I could see the doorknob moving. Fortunately, the deadbolt above the knob was locked. I was still kind of befuddled when I heard someone moving to the kitchen window. They must have had sand on their shoes because I could hear the crunchy noise when they stepped across the porch to the window. I was instantly awake. It was fully dark at that point. All the curtains were still open except the one Mama closed for me. The only light on was the one I had been reading under. I might as well have been under a spotlight. I was in a nightgown. I'd gotten hot, so had untied the wrap robe which had slid open. I was in a jam. What to do? Before whoever it was got to the window, I rolled off the couch and flattened myself against it. We had an old cedar chest as a coffee table at that time. I pulled up my legs so I couldn't be seen from the window. Julie was barking wildly now, and the cat had gone under something. I had to move. I would be in full view from the next window. I got up dizzy and moved across the living room where the curtain was closed toward the phone. My dog was now leaping at one of the windows with her teeth bared and barking. Whoever it was wasn't leaving. I had a hunch they knew I was alone. I didn't know how long they had been looking in before the dog started to growl. What really spooked me was a barking dog wasn't scaring them off. There wasn't anyone around to hear my dog. The campground close to us was closed for the winter. We had the only house amongst weekend cabins. Unfortunately, it was Wednesday. I got to the phone by moving along the wall. Yeah, at one point I was pressed up against the wall under the window that he was looking into. Yes, I was sure it was a man from the height and across the shoulders of the jacket that I glimpsed when he moved away from one of the other windows.